and subscribers, viewers, new people. My channel's been around for about 2 years now, and I've been in the hobby. In 2 weeks, it'll be 2 years. That's just with nitro and stuff like that. So, and I have dove in very deep. I have 36 vehicles now. So, I've done some reviews on some of them, but now I'm basically going to have an entire series doing a review on every single vehicle, what I like about it, and then what should be done that could possibly make it better. First one up is the oldie but the goodie, the Traxxas T-MAXX. It has been around since the 90s, and this personally was my very first Nitro RC. I had electric before this, but this is really what got me started in the hobby, a T-MAXX. Things I like about it when I first got into it, the easy start. That's a very handy way to get into it, so you're not having to buy a glow plug igniter, wear your arm out. When you get into tuning, into nitro for the first time, you're not going to be good at tuning. So you're going to have a lot of questions. You're going to foul up a lot of times, and honestly it's going to be a pain in the butt. But you will get it. The biggest thing is nitro engines are so small, and the fuel that they use is so volatile that you have to get everything perfect for them to run just right. You have usually a idle adjustment screw, which sets the gap, and then low speed and high speed. The 3.3, a lot of people dog on it, but for the motor that it is, the price that it is actually a very good motor. A 3.3 is equal to about a 0.20. So if you were to get an OS 0.21, of course that's going to be a better motor because that's a OS, a name brand nitro motor. But the body overall I like. It has a cutout right here to get to the gas tank. A cutout right here. I made this bigger, and a cutout back here for the starter one, which I wish I would have had that ready. I know there's one around here somewhere, but I'm not exactly sure where. But yeah, the starter wand, it can be a pain in the butt sometimes. I really wish I knew where it was. There it is. This starter wand. I have starter systems. I've pulled them off, and now that I've gotten into nitro and I know it well, I've gone to pull starts. It's better to, in my opinion, once you get the tuning part down, it's better to, in my opinion, hold just a glow plug igniter and an Allen head and maybe a temp gun if you're not really good at tuning by sound. But once you get really good, you can do that. With a T-MAXX, you will get the new ones. You'll get telemetry, and usually it will come with the Bluetooth sensor with the Traxxas remote. It'll be a 3-channel, but it does not come with reverse. Some do. Personally, I had to buy the reverse kit for mine. The small receiver sucked, the small servo sucked, so I ended up putting a 10th scale, which is a full-size servo on. It's just an HPI. Nothing special, just something that can go back and forth. Just basically a two-way servo, not proportional or anything. Things that I really like about T-MAXX is it's very durable. It's very old parts, very plentiful. I'm having to think as I go through this so I can just remember everything. It does have plastic drive shafts all around. The center drive shafts are plastic. Everything's plastic except the chassis, the gears, of course, the motor, certain parts on the transmission, like shafts and stuff like that. Stuff that's put under a lot of load has to be metal. But parts that I would say need to be upgrading are skid plates, bulks, diff cases, A-arms, not really. Like I've said in other videos, I always like to leave a weak point on my vehicles. and unless I'm building something to be bulletproof. And in that case, you can go metal, aluminum, titanium, everything, and there are some of those that are called Super Maxes, Gorilla Maxes, Magnetos, Phantoms. There's a lot of them out there where the entire rig is nothing but aluminum, titanium, and they get pricey very fast. $5,000 usually is how much someone will sell them, and the parts, if you were to actually part it out, you're looking closer to $7,500 to $1,000. So T-MAXX, you're going to want to get bulks. The bulk's the part that holds the diff case, and then you have the skid plates on the bottom right here, back and front. And the reason I'm saying those two parts is those are the parts that hold the entire front and the back to the chassis. That's the one down. That's one downside with the T-MAXX is there's 8 screws front and back holding the front section and the rear section to the chassis, to the center section. So you have them 4 up top and 4 on bottom through here, and same back here. And then the diff cases and bulks screw into those as well. So into the entire cases, not the chassis. Servos. I never like stock servos. I hardly ever run stock servos. That's one of the first things I always change out, servo. Personally, I like Servos. Every time I've had a high-tech servo, they've either gone out on me or the gears have broken. I've never had a problem with a Servos servo. If it's a servo like this right here, where all it's doing is a switch back and forth, that I don't have to rely on, okay, is it going to get stuck full throttle? Is it going to get stuck full brake? Is it going to get stuck? I don't have to worry about that. One downside that I saw very quickly with the T-MAXX is the brake pads. The new brake pads, what you're going to want to do with them, if I can find one real quick, I'll actually show. Yes, I have a very large, this is not even close to all the parts I have. Okay, here's one right here. It doesn't have the little pin anymore. The little pin is actually built into the back of it. This is actually the front one. But with the back one that goes against the transmission, there's a little bulge right here. And the cam rotates against that, pushes this into it. A problem that I saw very early on is that the brake material will fall off. So what I do when I get a new set of brakes is I pull this off. It's not hard at all. Put JB Weld, very thin layer, on the friction material, and then I put it back on, and then I let it cure. I give it at least 24 hours to cure. And I never have a problem with the brake pads again. And another thing you may want to do is, I can't even remember who originally did this, but between the 2 brake pads, take a spring from a click type pin, cut it in half, and on each side where the screw goes through, put it between the brake pads. So when you let off the brake, that spring will push the brake pads apart so there's no drag on the brake disc. So like I said, servos, do that little do the spring mod, and definitely do the mod to your brake pads so the friction material will stick and not go anywhere. Servos, another thing you're definitely going to want to do is, and this is going to be pretty much with every vehicle, a lot of them, most of them nowadays come with a little battery pack. Let's see if I can find one right quick. Yeah, a little battery pack like this for 4 AA's. That'll get you about 6 volts. That's enough to run a servo, but it's not enough amperage. The voltage will drop very quick, and because if you're pulling more amperage than the batteries can give, the voltage is going to drop. And that's known as voltage sag. So yeah, that's definitely something that you're going to want to throw out and get yourself a hump pack. For different vehicles, they have different size, different shapes. For the Losi and the Revo, there's actually a flat pack. Like this is for a DBXL, but they make smaller ones. But yeah, you have flat ones like this. Also, you're going to get telemetry with this, which is pretty cool, but do not rely on the temperature probe that goes around the head. It's usually 20 to 30 degrees off, and it takes a long time, usually a minute or two, for the correct temperature reading to actually show. And there's been many times where, when I was somewhat new, I got above 300 degrees on my 3.3. This is the second or third engine that I've had in my T-MAXX. I got this on July 17th, 2015. That's when I got this vehicle. It's got quite a few upgrades since then. You're going to want to get a good fuel. Of course, with any nitro, get a good fuel. I personally prefer Bones. I was running O'Donnell's, but this $30 a gallon plus $20 shipping. But if you get 3 gallons, that'll be $90. You don't have to pay any shipping. You honestly can't beat that, and this fuel is amazing. You can get 30%, 20%, 25%, and then there's a 10% or 8% oil. I've been using 8%, but I actually went up to 10% because it has castor and synthetic. If you get 8% and you want to add a little bit more, you can actually buy castor oil and add it to it, but make sure you don't add too much. You don't want, like one thing I never liked about when I first got into it, I used Traxxas Top Fuel 20%. Way too much oil, usually 14 to 16%. Even when I did the evaporation test, that's how much I came out with. If you take 100 milliliters of the fuel, however many milliliters, if you have about 14, if you have 10 to 14, if you have 10 milliliters left, that's 10% oil. If you have 12 milliliters left, that's 12%. 14 milliliters, 14%. So it's basically the methanol and the nitromethane will evaporate off, leaving the oil. So that's how you can tell. And yeah, I don't like fuel like that. You're usually going to run in an airplane, a boat, but something that's going to have high RPMs for a very extended period of time. Airplanes, boats, helicopters. So yeah, take that into consideration. Air filter with this, good air filter overall. Personally, I have motor savers that are going to go over onto this. You can look those up. Motor saver air filters are not that much. They're like 20 bucks. And it does really help. I have those on my collectibles mainly. But it is a dual stage. Basically, after every run, if I'm running in a very dusty or dirty area, I will pull the outer part off. You can see that there's actually two parts. Just pull this outer part off, clean it, and I use K&N air filter oil. Works great. It's worked great for 2 years. I've never had a problem with the motor, and my motors get at least 10 gallons through them. When you're done running your nitro, you are going to want to make sure to drop your piston to the bottom of this stroke, because remember, these work off compression. If you leave it, everything can't contract back down to its original size, the sleeve being the main part. And the piston is going to be in the way, so the sleeve is not going to contract all the way down, and just the metal is going to get used to, okay, I can only go that far, I can only contract that far, which will be the size of the piston. And that's when you're going to start losing compression. The RPM part of the telemetry, it's always going to be off. At a dead standstill with 6,500 RPM, it's going to be reading about 8 to 9 miles an hour even when it's not moving. So yeah, I ripped off all the telemetry. I don't like that. I have always get a temp gun so you can watch right at the glow plug. That's where you want to watch the temp at. Let's see if I can cover anything else. Definitely always replace the stock Traxxas clutch shoes. I don't like those personally. Get a dual shoe setup that has independent springs, not the circular spring. I personally like those. If you can, get a different flywheel and a different clutch completely. So this side, so yeah, servos. This is steering servo. This is a Servos 0251 Metal Gear. This is a 0231 Metal Gear, but it's waterproof. I don't need, on your brake and throttle, you don't need as much torque. You really need speed. That's a quick, it's not as fast as the 0251, but that's a $35 servo, and it's waterproof. I've waterproofed it with silicone conformal coating. I have a video that I'm going to do of that. So yeah, fuel, get a hump pack, upgrade your servos, skid plates, aluminum skid plates, and aluminum bulks at least. If you want, you can do aluminum arms and aluminum hubs. That's completely up to you. The tires, I'm actually running Talons, I believe. Yeah, these are Talons. I have the original tires that came on it. I just don't run them. Those are more my show tires. I run this quite a bit. Now let's turn it over. Now the receiver, right now I'm still running the Traxxas receiver. I have a FlySky IT4S coming, so, and 3 extra receivers, so this is going to get thrown out for that. Mainly with the telemetry, you're going to want to watch your voltage. And if you get rid of your AA pack, if you get rid of this and go with the hump pack, you really won't have to worry about your voltage as much, but always watch it, because if your voltage is low and you give it throttle, the only thing that's going to be able to return the, always make sure you have this spring set up correctly. It's a throttle return spring, so it doesn't get stuck at full throttle. It'll actually pull it back even if the servo dies. With my high-tech, when it died at about half throttle, and that caused this to go head-on into my Dodge Journey. You can get metal bumpers for it. You can get metal everything for this. It comes with an aluminum silver resonator. A blue one is also made. The silver is for more high speed. The blue causes more back pressure. That gives you more torque. Personally, I like to run these. It's an exhaust deflector. With nitro, you're always going to have that plume of smoke. Well, in that plume of smoke is unburnt oil. That'll get all over your tires, and as you see, I haven't cleaned this tire, so it's quite dirty compared to the front. But now, I have it pointed up and back, so it actually throws it off to the side, and it may get on the tire a little, but just right here, and it'll just rub off. Has decent header. The zip ties that they use aren't tight enough. They're never tight enough. I've always noticed that. Just clip the stock zip ties off, put new ones on. The shocks, you may want to go with big bore if you can. Get some Proline Power Strokes. I think it's off Ultra Shocks or someone. I can't remember exactly. But there's a lot of different shock combos you can put on this, but this uses 8 shocks all around. It's comparable to like the Savage, pretty much anything that uses the MGT 8.0, the MGT 4.6, I believe it is. So yeah, and you can also, since it is dual, you can run a softer spring, and you can sort of run progressive springs. One to really soak up the smaller bumps, and one to be a little stiffer. It's just, you'll have to figure out what you want to do there. Personally, I have mine set up for all-terrain use. I run it on-road and off-road at the same time. Not to get off topic, but my Revo, I have it set up for completely off-road. This one, I can run it on-road if I want. I can run it off-road. It comes with a wheelie bar. You can get the upgraded wheelie bar wheels that are rubber. They have bearings. So that's an upgrade. There's so many upgrades you can do to this. Transmission, I've never had a problem with it. A lot of people say with a 2-speed you're going to have a lot of problems with it. I have never had a problem with my transmission with 2-speed. The only problem I've ever really had is the clutch bell bearings going out. So with that, basically you just pull it, take the pipe off, take the motor off, and just pull it out of the way, making sure to undo your throttle linkage, and just replace the bearing with some good ones. Because you got to remember, when the clutch bell is not engaged, usually those bearings are having to sit and spin at between 6,000 and 8,000 RPM, depending where you have your idle set up. I prefer lower idle to take advantage of whatever low end torque these motors have. But yeah, the transmission, never had a problem with it. You will have to learn how to set the two-speed transmission. You can make it so it'll cut in a lot. It'll shift sooner, but I prefer for the engine to rev to about 2/3 of its RPM and then shift and then wind all the way out. And you don't really want a 3.3 to go above 30,000 RPM. The main problem with a 3.3 is the rod is a piece of junk. It's only single bushed with a copper bushing where it connects to the crankshaft. Davis Diesel and RB Mods sells a upgraded double bushed connecting rod, where it's bushed, has a copper bushing where the wrist pin is at the piston and also where it connects to the crankshaft. So that is one of the biggest downsides of the 3.3 is the connecting rod. Same with the 2.5, 2.5R. The 2.5R is nothing but a 2.5 with a blue head. It's bigger, can dissipate more heat. Shock towers are tough on this. I've never had a problem with shock towers. I've got a lot of extra parts for this. I mean, like I said, I dove in deep. I absolutely love this hobby. This hobby actually helped me get clean 100%. I was a drug addict for 7 years, so and this is a hobby that can really help you get away from things. It'll also help your kids get away. No, it'll help get your kids out of the house. Stop looking at those damn phones. Get them outside. Get them doing something outside. A nitro wouldn't be the best to start. Something electric like Arma Raider, Arma. Usually you're going to want to start with brushed. Brushless is way too fast. I have an Arma Fury, which is what my fiance is starting on. It's brushed. I thought it was brushless. The guy lied. So, not a big deal. But that's what she's starting with. Always remember that with a nitro, your exhaust is actually your fuel pressure. So that's what's going to give you your fuel pressure. If you ever have a fuel line that's getting near the head, make sure you protect it in some way. And this one actually does get very close to the head, and Traxxas puts this black nylon, I don't know how well that can be seen, but it puts this black nylon, but it'll still melt through it. The best thing is to get some stainless steel braid, and I have it on some of mine, and just completely cover the line from wherever it starts to wherever it ends, so you don't have to worry about any heat getting to it. Spur Gears I've never had a problem with. I've seen a lot of people have a problem with those. I've never had a problem with them personally. I've seen a lot of people I tighten mine down all the way and then until the spring is completely compressed and then back it off 1/8 of a turn. If I'm beating on a little harder, I'll maybe do 1/4 or 1/2 a turn. But usually 1/8 of a turn for this because like I said, it's all terrain. And it doesn't have extremely grippy tires. So yeah, that's pretty much it with the T-MAXX. That's of course you're going to want servos, aluminum parts where it connects to the chassis, and that is the bulkheads and the skid plate. Other parts, choose if you want to. Maybe get some Traxxas drive shafts. I personally would get MIP. I don't like Traxxas aftermarket parts personally. That's just me. I don't like Traxxas electrics at all because you're paying for 90 to 95% injection molded nylon plastic. So yeah, I don't like that. But their nitro program is quite good, except for the connecting rods. If you look up there on the internet and just look up 3.3 connecting rod split or break or something like that, you'll actually see a broken connecting rod that just split right down the center. Let's just make sure I went over everything. Steering, a metal steering bell crank is always a good thing to go with. Always tighten up your best way to best way to set your servo saver is tighten it down until it pretty much when you go to turn, hold the wheels still and then try to turn it. If it sort of servo saver comes undone, it's probably a little too loose. You barely want it to start uncoupling when you go to turn, because if you're turning and you're sort of sitting still, if you go to turn, the wheels aren't going to do anything. That's one problem with the Nitro Mad Force. The servo saver really needs to be tightened down quite a bit, because if you're sitting still and the tires have a lot of traction, the servo will turn, but the wheels won't turn. There's a lot of parts that, I mean, you can pretty much rebuild this entire thing with plastic and aluminum and titanium. They have Robinson Racing has an entire gear set for it for the transmission. You can't get reverse with it, forward only. If it does come with reverse, you got lucky. If any of them have opti drives, pull that out and just plug the reverse servo directly into channel 3. Opti drive basically senses the spur gear, and if it's moving at all, because you got to remember, even though bearings are getting rid of a lot of the friction, they're not completely frictionless. If you've ever heard of frictionless bearing, there is no such thing. There's always going to be friction, even with magnetic bearings. There's no magnetic or air bearings. There's still friction there. They're not 100% frictionless. With that you get perpetual motion. I really think that's about it when it comes to the T-MAXX. Yeah, that's really about it. It's a very good basher. If you want to start with a nitro, it's a good price, $500. That's about how much I paid for mine. If you can get it used, that's great. Usually about $200 to $300 depending on condition. But if you're new to nitro, never start with a used nitro. That's when you're going to have a lot of problems to get the motor running. The best thing is to get a new motor and go from there. Because used motors, needle settings are going to be completely different. So yeah, always go with a new motor if you're new to nitro. So yeah, that's it when it comes. Oh yeah, I will say this: the hexes are either 12 or 14 millimeters. I can't remember exactly. There's a 17 millimeter kit you can get for it. Very easy to put on. And now the new T-MAXXs use Revo dips and Revo drive shafts, so everything's stronger. Ever since the Revo came around, a lot of the parts that were weak on the T-MAXX have gone. They've taken the parts from the Revo and put it on this, the Revo 3.3. And I actually have all 3 chassis that the Revo ever came with. Yeah, the short 2.5 Revo, the Revo I run, which is a 2nd generation, and a 3rd generation, which is a big block. I have my Axial 32RR-1 on it. So there is the T-MAXX. So just remember, upgrade. Get yourself a hump pack, get yourself a better filter, make sure you get good nitro fuel, better servos, aluminum, bulkheads and skid plates front and back, a better radio if you want to. I personally don't like Traxxas radios, but I still use them from time to time with certain vehicles. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And make sure you get extra spur gears, because you do have a metal gear up against a plastic, and there's a lot of times that the metal's always going to outbeat the plastic, because the metal's harder. It's a harder material. You can get a metal spur gear. It's completely up to you. I just have extra plastics. I always have a weak link at certain spots. I have plastic A-arms and plastic spur gears. I have replacements laying around, and they're cheap. A set of A-arms, you're looking $5-6. And A-arms for this, they are the same all the way around. So it doesn't matter. With a Revo, the rear, every side is different. So yeah, that's the 3.3. the T-MAXX, and this is the extended. This isn't the classic. This is the newest version of the T-MAXX, the 3.3. Even though it's 2 years old, this is still what you will get from Traxxas. Some may come with the reverse, some may not. The reverse kit is $45. You have to take out the transmission, take it apart, take some gears out, put some gears in. Yeah. So hope that helps the people. And the next video will most likely be the Traxxas Revo. I don't know. I'm probably going to go in line with the vehicles that I got. But this is basically a long term. I've had this for 2 years. I'm still running the stock body that came with it. That shows how I don't beat the crap out of my cars. I have fun with them. But I also remember, okay, this thing costs $500. Do I want to continue replacing parts, or do I want to use some of the money I get to buy upgrades? I prefer upgrades. And now the Russia is actually coming out with bodies that don't break at all. I don't know what material he's using, but yeah, they don't break at all. You can take a hammer to them, they won't break. You can run them over, they won't break, with cars, full-size cars. So, thanks for watching like usual, and peace.